Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution.
Everything we're made of contains light. From the sun that feeds our world to the energy that flows within us. With LifeWave X39, we've found a way to put that light to work. With X39, we achieved something remarkable in the field of wellness and science that others could not. By utilizing LifeWave's unique patented technology, X39 uses light to elevate GHK-Cu, a copper peptide known to support overall health and wellness. Unlike traditional light therapy, X39 uses the body's own infrared light to naturally increase vitality. By gently stimulating the skin with light, our non-invasive, non-transdermal X39 patches help you conquer your active lifestyle and pave a new way to vibrant health.
The current fires are exact retribution for the fires of the past. Those fires forge mistrust that combust again and again in our subconscious trauma. Drama-ridden, dramatic stress from their disorder, bordering on a miscarriage of just us. Now justice for us brings justice for all. Because we the people are all the people. Because we the people are all the people. Because we the people.
Good morning and Happy New Year. How is my national, international, global, local community family doing? We made it into 2026, one of the most controversial years that will happen in our lives. If you're alive and well and here, or if you're alive and you're even struggling and here, you're living in a time of change. If you haven't recognized it, or whether you have recognized it, everything we know is changing. Everything. The thoughts that you've had, the will and the power that you have, whether you're aware of it or not, whatever you're doing, whether you were on the treadmill trying to lose weight or took Ozempic, whether you lost family members or you gained family members, whether you were living in a new area of the world because you moved away thinking that somehow things would be better somewhere else, this world has changed. We are living in the midst of change, and many of us are impacted every day by changes and unaware that this change is taking place by the same soul reflection you have of yourself and everything that has happened in your life, your thought process, your inner spiritual self. Whether you read the Bible, the Quran, or the Torah, whether you celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah, no matter what you do and where you are, we are living in a time of complete change. And just what are you ready to do now that you know that things have changed? Like when things change, don't we often do things like if our house gets dirty, we clean it up, right? We start reorganizing. We start looking and taking stock of family and friends, trying to make sure that we know where everything is at, so that we could put our finger on it and say, oh, I'm right here on the map. And here's who's with me. Have you done that check yet? It's 2026. It's 2026. And I have to tell you, I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here. And so as we get started, I'm going to take a few comments that are here from those who have come into the meet in the room. And if you're in the room with it, come on in the room. Come on in the room. I'm here with you. I am Senabella, and some people know me as the Bronzeville Diva, but whether you know me as Bella, Senabella, hey girl, sis, or whatever, I'm here with you. And good morning. And I just want to say, my lovely, beautiful young sister, happy Friday, good morning. She says, happy New Year, sis. She says, blessings for the new season. Good morning, Nifla. My beautiful young sister, she's here. And then this here sister here, I'm just like totally amazed with JJ. Good morning, JJ. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Welcome here. I just want to say something. You honored me in your presence, and I'm honored to be here in your presence. Thank you for coming. Yes, it means a lot when people listen and they hear us. We say we like to be seen, but the truth is we like to be heard. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And JJ, I just want you to know I see you and I hear you. She makes these beautiful, beautiful multi-layered pieces that she does for social media. She's taken beautiful, beautiful pictures of landscapes of the sunlight, and all of them are so dynamic. But what's most interesting about it is her way of looking at the multimedia layer of music that is associated to it that tells that story of her picture. JJ, it's amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing it all. Like, let's keep going. Let's keep going. But coming in the room with me today, I just want to say we're going to transform to even greater and more wonderful conversation. You're so welcome, JJ. You're so welcome. I want you all to include your thoughts about what it is that you think that is transformative in your life that you've seen, and how has it affected you and your family? What are some of the changes that you see, say, with your children, with your family members, that you say are extremely or somewhat different that you realize that are going on? Things that are sort of causing your heart to wonder if in fact you're going to make it. How about you realize that you're making it in spite of it all? You've come to a place where you kind of know now that you have been in a transformative place in your life and you're going to actually make it, that things are going to be okay. And have you taken stock of what it is that I've said? Well, I'm going to bring to the stage Dr. Naimah Latif, this beautiful sister, this beautiful woman who has encouraged us to use our voices here at the Female Solution and to raise our awareness with others here to be more present in the world as all these new changes take place. And I have to tell you that the women here on this here network, they are amazing, fabulous women who do dynamic things and saying dynamic things. And I say always to encourage everyone to come in and find out about it. Bring it to the stage, Dr. Naimah Latif. Good morning, Naimah.
Well, grand rising to everyone. We're so excited to be beginning a new year. Happy New You. This is always a chance for us to really reflect, and it's a good season to start to assess, especially as we go through various transformations. And as you said, the relationships with family members, that's the thing that touches our hearts the most. And they do change over time as our children go through the different stages of growth. And we're going through stages of growth as well.
Yeah, it's like being impregnated and having a child all over again in some cases.
Ooh, yes.
It's like the growing pains of pregnancy. We find that our children are saying and acting out and saying things that make us go, oh, that hurts.
Yeah, and the thing is, you thought the difficult part was when they were little, when they were toddlers, and you were just struggling to make sure they didn't bump their head or didn't accidentally choke on something or didn't accidentally get electrocuted. You're just trying to keep them alive, and you're thinking that's the hardest part because you got to watch them 24/7 and always make sure if you leave them with somebody that person is safe. And there's all these things you worry about. And then once they're out of the nest, once they're flying free, once they're gone, then a whole different set of issues arise, because that's when they become their own person. That's when you see their personalities blossom. And that's when you see the reflection of all the experiences they've had with you. And sometimes, like you say, it can be painful.
Ooh. Yeah. And it's funny too, when you say that, I laugh at it because I'm sort of like on the side of the road with it now, and it's still traffic. But even the older they are, they seem to be the more disruptive in terms of relationship. And I think it's not abnormal. I think that life has always probably been this way. If my mom were here, she'd probably say, "Oh, Senabella."
Well, the thing is, they're going through various challenging stages of growth. We know what that's like when you reach that age where you're looking for that special soulmate, and all the emotional challenges that creates when you finally decide you found that person, and then trying to figure out how to make a relationship work, and how to maintain a feeling of mutual respect. And then when you go through the stages of having your own children and self-doubt and all of these things, you feel so unprepared. And it's like, well, how come nobody told me about this? How come nobody told me about that? And so you're learning on the job, even trying to do that. So when you become the grandparent or the older parent of the child going through those challenging phases, that's when you see perhaps the distress that they're going through, because now they have to look at all of their self-doubts. They have to look at all their feelings of unpreparedness. They have to look at all the mistakes they may make. They might get into a relationship and maybe it ends painfully. And we know what that's like. We've been through it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they haven't, or the first time they have, it could be devastating. And then sometimes they get to a phase where they start blaming us for their mistakes. Like, well, if you had told me this, or if you hadn't told me that. What do you do with that when suddenly the way they handle things is to say, well, it's your fault?
And then I'll say this, that because I was a young mom, I couldn't anticipate anything because I just didn't know what it would bring. Right. Here I was in my teens to my 20s, a mom, and doing and learning the behaviors of motherhood. And it's not abnormal. Many, many, many women and men were doing this. Okay. It's just that when it happens to us, we don't see it the same way.
Right.
And so I thought they just turned into monsters. Like, they turned into monsters. Who are these people? They can't be mine. And I felt rejected, and I felt overwhelmed. And I stayed at my mother's lap all the time. And she just listened. She went, okay. Because I think she must have known it'll pass and you'll be all right. She never said to me, "Oh, Senabella, don't worry, it's going to change." She didn't say that. She just listened and nodded her head and let me ramble on like she always did. And the children my adult kids were, they were now where I was at in my 20s. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I was trying to understand their language and what they were doing. But today, now that they're in their 40s, it's like you go, what in the living is going on? Why are they still acting out? But then there's a whole nother stretch of road that's changing, because now they've become mothers and fathers too, right? And then the same perils that we had in our lives, in our spirits, and the worries and the concerns we had, it was all there. Good morning, Lawrence. He's here, and he says that, "Oh, look at you, Lawrence. You got a whole new look. You're looking pretty good over there in that pig, Lawrence." You say you bringing it in, huh? I love it. He says acceptance and appreciation in every relationship, in every type of relationship is key. You're right, but how do you accept what you're not prepared for?
And that's the thing. You always feel like no one told me this was going to be like this. It's just when I first had my child, no one told me the extreme exhaustion you were going to feel. And, okay, childbirth, they said that's going to be painful. Well, it wasn't as painful as I thought it was going to be. But the aftermath, no one prepared me for that. No one prepared me for just having no energy. No one prepared me for the nights when you can't sleep because the child is on a night schedule. So you got to be the one that gets up and hears them and feeds them. And no one prepared me for, all the things that you learn as a human personality is developing. And I'm grateful that my parents were there to be the grandparents that babysat and all that. And I'm grateful that they were able to give me a break sometimes. You know, my husband and I, we were working together, building our media company and all that sort of thing, and our publishing company and all of that. So I'm grateful they were there to step in. I'm grateful that my sister was there to, and she was also having children at the same time. So I'm grateful we were able to kind of raise our children together. But there are a lot of things that people didn't prepare me for, and I had to learn. I didn't want to make some of the errors that I felt my parents make. And you know, you always feel bad when your children grow up and they point out, well, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have done that. But I kind of did that to my parents. Well, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that. So things that I wanted to change, definitely didn't want to do the corporal punishment thing because I felt like that, you know, it crushes your spirit. But so then you had to be creative and trying to mold your child's behavior without violence. And no one can guide you that, because you know our culture is like, they do something wrong, spank them. Okay, well, if I'm not doing that, then I got to do something else to redirect her behavior because I'm not trying to hit her. Yet you do get frustrated when they do things you don't like, and you need to mold that. So that was challenging. And then, you know, when they go through the teenage phases, and you know, and I'm grateful I had a child that was not rebellious. There are those who were. I'm grateful that she was, you know, she chose to be on the straight and narrow. That was her choice. I could not have made her that way. Mm-hmm. And so I'm grateful that I didn't have many of the challenges that other people have. But then, you know, there's the phase they get to as an adult, and then they look back and they start to question, well, why did you do this way? Why did you think this that way? And you want to say, yeah, but you turned out okay. But I'm, you know, it's the same thing that my mother said to me when I said, well, you know, I don't think you should have done this, and this. Yeah, but you turned out okay. But I don't know, did I? So we're constantly questioning ourselves, even as adults. Did I do the right thing? Did I make any decisions that I should have done differently? Did I expose them to things that maybe they shouldn't have seen? Like, you know, one thing that, because, you know, me and my husband, we were really deeply into, you know, Black culture and everything. So the movie Shaka Zulu came out, and I thought, oh yeah, our history, our culture. Well, you know, later my daughter told me how that movie traumatized her because of all the violence. I didn't think about that at the time. That is a very adult movie in terms of, you know, the graphicness of things, you know, nudity, violence. I didn't think of it as I'm thinking, oh, culture, you know, but looking back, I said, okay, a 5 or 6 year old, maybe that might have been kind of intense for them. So, you know, these little things, and you start to feel bad that you didn't realize.
But we realize, as we are away from that, we realize that we were learning at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a template that's being created. It's not something that you automatically know. You can have a great parent, and you can assume that you know all the tidbits of what you'll become as a parent. Good morning, Brother Tyrone. It's good to see you. Happy New Year. And man, and Henri, it's really wonderful that she stopped in to see us too as well. Henri Salas is so good. Yes. So we're talking about the temperament of change. This is 2026. And it seems like some of our children are running around like demons, even though they've aged and they may have had children. It seems that love, marriage, and all of these things have something to do with it. And the coming of age into the sexuality of who they are and who they were, you know, all of those things play a role. And I have seen in my children somewhat the same temperaments of who I have been. And I go, oh, you know, and now I know why my mother was always like, okay, son, because I did those same things, but I still wasn't prepared for it. Because you can't no one can prepare you for what will be.
Yeah.
They say, put the food up in the pantry just in case, you know, the store is closed, right? You can have extra clothes so you're ready for winter. And but you can choose the wrong clothes or the wrong boots. You can tell your kids information that you think in the future that they'll hold on to, and they won't use it because they're in their own practical learning.
And they're in a different era. I mean, we didn't grow up with the internet and cell phones. We're walking around with, you know, our own private computer. We didn't have that. So their world is totally different.
I just have to say this, but a lot of our parents and grandparents said we didn't grow up with TV. And
That's right. That changed the whole culture. Television.
So
they sat around listening to a radio, you know.
Communication.
Yes.
Yeah. Direct communication. It was all about direct communication. So now we're at a time when that is capital. Direct communication. So the internet, you can beat it up all you want, but direct communication. Communication. It's so raw, so visceral, so honest. And so they come to us, or we're interacting with other people with that same kind of code of behavior.
Yes.
And so let's talk about all of the young men and women who are unmarried, are separated from families on purpose, choosing to step way outside and live in the crack on the cement, you know, as opposed to using the whole walk for their life. You know, there's so many things happening that have changed the family unit, and those units made the community change, right? And we were talking about last week, you know, like, how do we remain community? I think we're being aware of what's happening to the community is most important.
Well, that's the thing that I have observed. A lot of the generation that's coming into maturity now, they've looked at perhaps broken families or difficult family dynamics. Maybe there was a lot of strife in the family. And so many of them have come to the conclusion that marriage is not a good institution. And so they'll just have relationships, maybe have children with somebody, and then they just split, you know, and so the family was never really officially formed. And so you have all of these children being raised with parents that are maybe co-parenting, or maybe one parent just checked out and said, well, look, we split. I don't have nothing to do with you or that child. So it's a lot of brokenness in terms of the family unit that we grew up with as the norm, because they've come to the conclusion that, well, you all's marriage didn't work. I don't want to go through that pain of separation. So they end up with an intimate relationship and may even have children, but it was not the marital structure that we would have wanted, because that's how you build community. You have your nuclear family and this nuclear family, and then everybody is part of the community. Well, that's not happening. So our communities are fragmented with that. So there's that situation. And then people aren't raising their children to be spouses in an organized way. There are a lot of cultures around the world where there's some kind of system where you figure you meet up, and then you match this person up with that person, or families get together and say, well, what about my son and your daughter and all of that? And
we should talk about that, because the real truth is that we are not, when our children are at risk of meeting and being a part of the worst relationship of their world, in our time, we are not bringing families together for that very thing that you're speaking of.
Yeah.
When I got married, even though I was very young, when this brother came to marry me in an Islamic family, right? There was the sit down, the rap about, the talk about, and there was no guarantee that he or she, or that I was the perfect match. But you were aware of the person's at least first and last name and who your daughter got pregnant by, right? Who they were marrying. And because of that change, because everything is the lines are so blurred now, right? Our children are out here by the boots of, the seats of their pants, as they used to say, and trying to figure out, how do I meet my perfect match? How do I do that? And a lot of them have already surrendered their bodies, their minds, souls, and spirits, and have lost touch with themselves, or they're abstaining completely. A lot of young women today and a lot of young men are abstaining from relationships and commitment, because they don't know what they're getting. They have shows like Pop the Balloon.
Yeah.
They stand in front of a line and they like cattle, and the men stand like cattle, the women stand like cattle, trying to figure out if they're going to meet by chance in a 30-minute segment someone that they can walk the rest of their life. There are no
I know.
there are no trusted institutions of families and communities
That's it.
that they
Trusted
believe that they're going
institutions.
to be able to find the perfect match.
That's
Right?
it. Where are
And
the institutions where you meet someone? Your religious institutions where at least you feel like these are people who we agree to a set of values and principles and the lifestyle, so that we can know something that is at least in common with this person we're considering marrying. Where are the institutions? I mean, you have online dating and all of this kind of thing, and like you say, that just pop the balloon show it, all these things where people are it's almost like Russian roulette, trying to figure out who's the right person that you can have a relationship with, and it won't end in disaster.
And let me just say, I think it's a good thing that at least someone has paid attention to the fact that there's difficulty in dating and finding the right match. And what it has done is raised awareness and given me consciousness to what the conversations are and how they're looking at or viewing this idea, this aspect of marriage and connectivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that there's going to be some players on the show or not. But what the real thing is that it speaks to the temperament of how they seem so lost.
I know.
Not very young people. In some cases, it's the very young, and in some cases, it's those in their 40s and 50s.
That's the thing.
And statistics say that senior people are getting married more now than younger people.
Yeah. A friend of mine just got married. We grew up together, and what's so funny, because you think about in the old days how families would get together and match up your children. Now, there are three of us, me and my three sisters, and my two sisters. So there are three of us. And she had, and they lived next door. She had, three older brothers and everything. And it was so funny. One day my father said to me, of course, I was grown and married and everything. And one day me and my father were talking, and he said, wow, they had three tall, handsome young men next door, and my daughters didn't get none of them. I'm thinking, what? That's so funny. After all these years, he had been thinking, oh, wow, we moved next door to this family, and, maybe my daughters might marry into that family. And I'm laughing because, they grew up like my brothers, but the fact that he was thinking like the old days, you get together and match up your children. And he was hoping maybe we'd marry one of them. So you never know what your parents are thinking. But when you think about it, those are the kinds of relationships that last because the families know each other. You grew up together, you know each other. So there's a cohesion, there's, shared memories.
There's a trust that the families are involved, and therefore when there are problems, they will be able to help face those problems.
Yes.
I want to go back to what Lawrence says. He says, society's lines have been blurred. Darkness is the overcast. We have to be the light. And here's the light. When hey, Deborah, you're here. Thank you so much. One of our sisters, two of our sisters are here that are illuminating. They illuminate and transform us through their mediums and what they do here at Female Solution. Deborah's one. And she says communication, commitment, and compromise. So we always talk about communication. We always talk about commitment. We always talk about compromise. But how do you get to that if you don't even know what you're doing when you're doing it? It's like a crap game. You're just throwing the dice down, and whatever number comes up, you hope that that's the winning number. Mm-hmm. But it is about the commitment, Deborah. You got to stay in it. It's about that, isn't it, Lauren? Because, people who are married and have stayed married for long periods of time or getting married in their late years are realizing it is about the commitment. It's about having a complete alignment to staying in it, to look and move through it, not through terrible relationships. I'm not talking about relationships where you got stuff going on that's so bad that you shouldn't even be trying to stay in it, that you shouldn't even try to stay in it. I'm talking about relationships where you're angry and upset, you don't agree, you got financial problems, your kids are growing up and acting crazy, but you all are together and eating, and somehow the behavior has some sustainability.
Yes.
And for those who really learn and fight and practice to be a part of community and families, you see a reward coming out of that. You see a reward. So what's the reward in getting married in your later years? Think of that.
I think there's a level of wisdom that you have generally It kind of depends though also why you're single still in your later years. You might be widowed, which, you know, of course that happens. You have a spouse that passes away, they transition, and so you're looking for another relationship. You may be divorced, and sometimes the divorce carries residual emotions that if you haven't resolved them, it can carry into the next relationship and taint that as well. If you're widowed, you know, you have to have let go of the grief. You have to not be trying to replicate the last relationship, because this is going to be a whole new person. So you have to be able to, whatever reason you're coming into a marriage as you're older, you have to be prepared for that. Now, if you've never been married and you're in your 50s, that could be a challenge, because knowing how to compromise and cohabitate with another person, and if you've never done it, you could be kind of rigid. You know, you don't want the chair moved over here. I've always had it here. And, you know, I mean, this kind of thing of you don't know how to blend with another person. If you have not done that earlier, now you're really set in stone in the way you do things. So sometimes that can be challenging if you've never been married and you married later on. But if you have been married, you can at least assess the things you did, maybe things you'll do differently this time. Maybe you can adjust to somebody who's different personality, or maybe you got an issue you need to address in yourself that surfaces in this new relationship, because you got a problem, you never fixed it. You're going to have that same problem with a new person because it's your problem, it's not the other person. So it's a lot of things that happen. But I think sometimes when you marry later, you have matured. You don't have ego issues where, you know, you're insecure, because that's a lot of the problems that young people have when they marry, the insecurity. And generally you're more settled financially. So that's not the stressor, because a lot of times that's the big stressor in relationships when you're younger. So sometimes the later marriages work because the people are more stable in who they are, and they have a little more wisdom in life.
Are they lonely and desperate? Or are they stable? Which is it?
Sometimes sometimes it's the loneliness. And you know, loneliness isn't necessarily bad, because it means that you appreciate the company of another person. And but loneliness can make you make bad choices, and loneliness can make you enter in a relationship with someone that really is not compatible. You just want somebody. You don't want to be in an empty house by yourself anymore.
I just want to say this. One of the things that loneliness does is it pushes you out. Either you're going to go internal or you become external. JJ says, I think the main problem is that no one wants to commit to making relationships work. The first sign of trouble, they're out. We all are suffering from some type of post-traumatic stress. And it's not all due to racism or crime. It is very much, JJ, as you say, it's the knee-jerk reaction to pain, period, to loss, to fear. We don't want to hang around to see what's going to happen. You know, we like, you know what, if I stay around for this, one thing's for certain, I'm not going to win, because you don't have the answer, you feel, to respond to what's going on.
Yeah.
So you feel like the panic brings you to want to move out. I had a young person that I just met said that their partner, he came home and his partner had taken everything out of the house and left.
Oh, that's happened to a friend of mine before.
He was devastated.
Yeah, that is devastating.
Communication wasn't there. That person, whoever did that to the person that I'm speaking of, they probably had felt there was just a complete fail in communication, wasn't being heard, or they were just not willing to open up and share what was actually happening so there could be a repair. But when our children come to us, how are we going to manufacture what's needed in the sense of the softness, the credibility, the respect, the overall desire to see your family grow and have a steadfast movement pace forward? There are so many things that we're facing, and this new world that's changing is asking us, what will we do? What seeds did we plant, and how do we secure the family unit?
That's real. I know we got to take a break, but that's a real question we have to look at, because we have to do something different. This trend now of like he said, first sign of trouble, we split. We cannot build a community with that attitude. And we're devastated because we don't have the building blocks of a community because we're not staying together as couples.
Well, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. Give everybody a chance to settle in. I know some people said that they were having internet problems, but I did turn on my cell phone to see if it was live on Facebook. It is. So if you go to my page at Facebook, Senabella Gill, it's live and active. Some of you are having problems, and I recognize that. Thank you so much for having the problem and coming back. Let's take a quick break and see what we can hear about Female Solution and our sponsors.
Leaders of nonprofits empowering worlds. Let's go.
But the vision that God gave me, I felt that it was time for me to step out and work on the vision that God gave me.
We need look no further. We have a unique voice. We have a unique talent pool.
What's up, guys? It's Osada, the host of the Gathering of the Griots podcast, part of the Female Solution. Want you to join us every Tuesday morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And guess what we do? We interview authors of the Soulful Chicago Book Fair. The books, the experiences, the lifestyles, all of it with fervor. So be there right on the Soulful Chicago Book Fair YouTube page or on the Female Solution Facebook page. We look forward to having you and all our literary essence. Peace.
Welcome to Masterforce with Mushim Soot. Join us each week on Thursdays at 7 a.m. Central, live on Facebook and YouTube on the Female Solution page, as we dive into powerful topics designed to assist you in mastering your life force. Our conversations feature a diverse lineup of experts, all dedicated to your growth. Tune in weekly to discover new ways to elevate your spirit and raise your vibration. And remember, we are ascending.
So while we're sitting here and discussing what it is that we think are problems, there are answers, and these three sisters have provided ways of getting those answers through this medium. And I'm going to push it and I'm going to speak about it because it is real. We are inherently leaders. We are inherently equipped with the answers that are needed in order to be a life force of change. And so when our children come to us and they're naked with emotion, right? And they're lost spiritually, and they're begging for softness. They're looking for that hug. They want to feel like they're inside the womb. You have to give them a warm coat, right? You have to give them a hug. You have to give them time and only listen and not have an emotional response, because as parents, it's not abnormal to feel like you want to answer things. It's not abnormal to feel like you want to give answers. It's not abnormal for us to want to embrace their pain and find a way to take it away, to extract it. But there are things that are old school that we can do and we haven't done. And you spoke of it earlier. And we have to think about that. What are those things? When our daughters and our sons come to us and you notice that they've had a long bout of being single, it could be that it came from a time when they were with someone. All four of my kids got married. And they were no longer married. What was practical and useful that they came out of their marriages with are now just a big bag of nuts and bolts, and they're trying to figure it out. So the longer they stay out of a relationship, the longer it'll be before they get into another, because they don't trust that they're good at what they're doing.
That's the thing.
How do we help them to know that they are a magnet?
Well, I think one thing that we can do is to change the cultural attitude that you're a failure if a relationship ends. because you can go down a path with somebody for 4, 5, 6 years, and then you all simply go your separate ways. You develop differently. You're no longer in harmony. That's not necessarily a failure. It's just growth in different directions. So if you acknowledge the fact that I am not the person that I was 6 years ago when we decided to unify, and we need to allow each other the space to grow our separate ways, then you don't look at it like, oh, you failed, you don't know how to stay married, you're worthless, because you have all those self-condemning things when a relationship breaks up, because there's pain involved in that. But if we can at least not make them feel like there's something wrong with them if that relationship ended, then they can just assess, okay, this is what I was back then, this is where I am now. I'm not that same person, so let me find somebody who is in harmony with what I am now. Because it happens, and it definitely happens when you marry young, because you go through so many different phases of growth, and sometimes that person that you're growing with is not growing in the same direction or at the same rate, and you just cannot walk together. What is it saying? I think the biblical saying, how can two walk together if they're not equally yoked? The whole image with the oxen thing. But you got to be.
But what about what Jay was saying earlier? Everybody doesn't want to stay and have the conversation, talk about it, deal with it. Is that the time to leave because you find you don't have a structured kind of similar reality? Or is that to take a vacation in your mind, take a breath, sit back and see what the other person means and how they feel and what they're doing? Is that the time for family to come together more and say, hey, let's they are having problems. Let's not talk to them. Let's just get them together and put them back in the room and show them what this is all about.
Well,
family. Yeah. We're a family. Let's eat together. Let's celebrate love together. Let's find a way to overcome the obstacles together. If we function as a whole and we see that someone is in pain, it is our responsibility, out of love and a commitment for growth and for the enrichment of our family, to step in lovingly and sacrifice something of yourself for the people that are in pain, so that they don't feel alone. When you feel alone and the family's outside of what's happening with your problems, you automatically are at risk.
Yeah, that's true.
Risk. You have to get into it. It has to be everybody inside the problem together.
Well, that's the thing, though, because sometimes your children feel like you're butting in, but like you say,
but that's what we're supposed to do. When you learn as a family, when you learn and you understand that the butting in is in order to remove the pain, you got to do surgery to get the tumor out.
Ooh,
you got to do
that's it.
It's not going to happen if no one intervenes, if no one stands in the gap. Then
there's no healing of the wound.
Space, and no one is. If nobody's getting in between that, and then it just keeps getting like this. Eventually, the energy is like that, and it's over. It implodes. Yeah. So we have to find ways to communicate lovingly when we see those actions take place.
Yeah, keyword lovingly, because
if a home is in peril, then you go in, you see the house disrupted. Go in and take time and say, "Let me help you. I'm going to help clean up. I'm going to help cook." That's what our neighbors and families did. That's what our parents did. That's what people did that really learned to help each other. Families evolved because there's a sense of connectivity and commitment, not because it's their problem, because it's your problem. Your family ceases to exist.
That's true.
You no longer have a family. You don't have any lineage to look to. Everybody's out here by the wing and the tail of their bottoms trying to make it happen, and a society is not made or born or close to maturity when everybody is not willing to be committed.
Right. We're not functioning well because of the brokenness, the fragmentation of the families. And you're right, when it comes to seeing that there's conflict, those of us who are of the age of wisdom, we need to lovingly assist. And sometimes our offers to help are not well received, and sometimes they are, but we do need to help our adult children sometimes understand the long range effects of their decisions, because especially when you have children,
Dr. Latif.
That's going to make a big difference.
Look, if I'm really sick and in my bed and you keep coming to my door, eventually I'm going to answer because I know maybe going to die alone. I'm going to get some help. Right? So we have to want to be a little bit more pushy.
Yeah, sometimes you have to aggressively.
Sometimes we have to. When we realize that speech is not the answer, then love takes on another form, another shape to provide an answer.
Yeah. And sometimes our children listen, sometimes they don't.
Right, but sometimes we need to break away from things. You know, everybody can't afford a vacation. Everybody doesn't have an extra room. Everybody doesn't feel that they have a friend.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'll be honest and tell you that call a friend is important. It's still something that's essential.
It is. And it's really challenging when there's anger involved and you have two parties that aren't listening. And this is why it is important when we talk about children having relationships and marrying, that the family be involved in that, because it's the family that's going to encourage you to stick with it. If you get some random person somewhere, nobody knows who they are, nobody knows their background, there's no connection with their family. So when there's a split, there's no cohesion with all the various parts of the family to help you stay together, especially when there's a grandchildren. And now once there's a divorce, then you lose contact with your lineage. Like you say, where's the...
We're looking for their grandkids. I promise you, that's one thing nobody wants. Grandparents don't want to look for their grandchildren. They want, in fact, you want, as a grandparent being one, you want more of the stability for your child once the grandchildren are present.
That's what's critical.
And that's when who you are can impact change.
Yes.
Time when you can be less selfish in certain ways and more selfish in other ways.
Yes.
You can get away from it and allow them to see. You can play the Yoda role, you know, but at the same time, you might have to play the housekeeper role. You might have to go in and aid the sick and the ailing of that family. Sometimes the husband is worn out and tired from the demand. The wife is worn out and tired from the demand, not just about children, not just about money, but the demand for understanding and care.
That's when parents can help.
That's right. Did you know
that's when it's needed? You know, when both parties are just too weary, too worn out, you know, they need somebody who can give them a break. And if sometimes it's hard, because if you've moved away from your family, then you don't have that support system. And that's part of what the fragmentation has developed into, because we're living so far apart sometimes, so that you don't have that family to help. One of my friends that I remember, he married a woman from Ghana. He was American, and they had their first child. And he was observing, as an American-born person, the culture of family cohesion. Every time to always be there, nobody get your break. The child's crying, you're weary. The father maybe's gone to work or gone whatever, and you're angry because he's not there to help and all that. So you know, you have those kind of conflicts because everybody's tired. When he was saying over there, you don't have that. Mothers don't have that kind of stress that they have here, because everybody steps in to help. When we don't step in and help, the stress of life gets overwhelming for a young couple, and everybody's blaming each other. And so when you don't have elders who understand and step in and say, well, let me hold the baby for a while. Will you all go out to dinner and I'll stay at the house. If you don't have that, then you don't have a release valve to get rid of the pressure, and it explodes. And that's what happens to so many of our young families.
I want to talk about sex, the communication in relationships, and the holding of it to kind of control the relationship, and what that's meant to the relationship. And then when pregnancy takes place, how people are coping with that aspect of it. You know, because it is a moment of pleasure, and it is a moment of definition. It is a moment of extreme closeness. It is a moment of having a connection to a person that's highly spiritual. And the production of it can mean pregnancy. And it can also mean just a big relief, right? And oftentimes, what people are doing is looking for relief more than the truth of why it even exists, which is life, right?
Yes.
And so when we talk about relationships and differences in other, say, countries and places, they're saying the same thing about who we are over here. They're looking at what we're doing as we're looking at what they're doing. But there is no different answers. That's what we realize in this conversation, that we all have to do the same things. We're going to be struck by the same lightning, right? But we've been provided with things as just human beings to just figure things out, make things work, right? And there are a lot of times when I've looked at relationships, and there are people who are highly sexual in their relationship, and it keeps them together.
Well, you know, that can be a very strong bonding thing, and it can also be deceptive if we're socializing our children to, and this has been a problem for maybe past decades, that I think now perhaps we as women are looking at what we need to do differently. If we're socializing our sons to see sex as a recreation until you get serious, which means you're basically practicing on some women that you don't really care about, and then you find that woman that you want, there's a lot of damage that you did to a lot of women that you didn't really care about, because we go through everybody, you know, goes through a biological change once there's sexual intimacy. But women, our brains produce oxytocin, which is a bonding chemistry, a bonding chemical in the brain when you have sexual intimacy with someone. So we're bonding with somebody who wasn't really that serious. This was just a fun thing until they find somebody they want to get serious with. How many relationships can you have like that before it damages you so deeply emotionally? And so a lot of women come into situations scarred because they've had a child perhaps with someone who wasn't really serious about that relationship because of the way they were socialized about sex. So now we're realizing, okay, well, that's not how you need to socialize your sons and daughters. So, but how do we get to a culture where you realize sexual intimacy is a bonding act? It is a spiritual act, but we don't need the shame and blame and condemnation that we've had toward women who maybe were sexual with someone that they weren't really emotionally ready to be serious with, but they were at that age where, you know, your hormones and everything else is saying it's time to mate. So we've been struggling with trying to have a balanced way of preparing our children for the sexual intimacy of life in such a way that it's bonding them together, it's helping them mature, it's paving a way for life, and helping them be responsible for the life they're creating through this act. And we haven't figured that out yet in a way that helps us build family and community. So we got a bunch of people having sex and having babies and still haven't defined what a healthy relationship looks like and at what age you're ready for one.
Well, you know what? I want to say this about that. If you have a Band-Aid, you use it. It doesn't mean that it's going to be good forever that way, but it can be a salve, it can be a cure. And I think that intimacy is a salve and a cure. It is a time of a division away from the difficult and the hard things that you have to manufacture every day. And just like I think that time away from family can be a cure as well. She said, Deborah says, what is this mess? I'm not talking to family because of what they said or not agreed with my opinion. Well, guess what? That's because you're trying to figure out answers and you feel like somehow your family hasn't got the answers and they're arguing with you and trying to tell you and you're not listening. And so you're mad and you move away. Or sometimes you move away because you have an answer and they're not listening and there's no respect. But I just want to kind of go back to the talk about the salve that we've been given.
And that really, it can hold you together.
It can
because it reinforces the intimate bond. It can hold you together.
The intimate bond can lead to new life, but the taking of it, the raping of it, the raping of the gold mine, we're gonna call it, right? The misuse of the gold mine and letting minerals go to anybody and anywhere, and you get no practical use out of it, right?
Yeah, and that's what has been damaging. Or sometimes, and I've had male friends explain this to me in terms of what happens when the emotional relationship with a wife is broken, and they still want to feel that all the benefits of intimacy, so they turn to someone else and have an intimate relationship with that person. Well, then you've kind of broken the bond with the person that you made that commitment to be with. And you've made a mess because now you're bonded with someone outside of that marriage. How are you going to fix that? Sometimes you can't, because now your feelings have changed, or now you don't realize emotionally you have separated from the spouse that you were supposed to be bonding with, but because your emotional conflict kept you from being intimate, and you took your physical expression to someone else, now you've created a division. And that is what breaks up a lot of relationships, a lot of marriages. Oh, this person cheated on me. You call it cheating, so and then the attitude is, well, I can never forgive him. He cheated, he lied, I can't trust him anymore, I can't trust her anymore, all that kind of thing. So
I want to kind of visit that and say this, but what if you really understood that the intimacy is a time of rest and forgiveness and closeness, instead of saying, oh, I don't feel like it, I don't want to, and then your mate goes and finds somebody else where they can get the rest and the intimacy and the closeness and the hug, right? What people are looking for when sex is involved is not all the depravity of how many ways you can have sex, because really that's just turned into how many ways you can figure out how to make yourself feel better.
Right.
And it only lasts for a moment. And so it's addictive, and it can happen over and over again, and you never are resolved. But when you're in a real relationship, I just want to say, when you're in a real relationship, it's really short on time and it's about to go out. And I want to say,
that wouldn't fit.
When you're really in a real relationship and you've sorted out these pieces, I'm going to say this where I'm at in my life now. You understand how cooking a meal can mean a big difference than buying a meal. You understand how being with family is better than looking for neighbors and anybody to like you. But if you're in a community, then everyone loves you. If you're in a family, then everyone can be a part of what's happening with you, because you don't feel like there's this overwhelming need to understand everyone, but that everybody's trying to help you sort out the socks. You know what I'm saying? When we understand that this life has provided all the answers right within the context of a relationship between one or two human beings, right? That creates family, that creates unity, that creates dignity, that creates respect. You're protected, because then when someone comes in and tries to rape you of, say, your sexuality, your humanity, your finances and stuff, then everybody is aware of that and they help to eliminate it.
Yeah.
So we have to want to foster a time in our lives when we say that I'm marrying my partner, I'm going to be with them, I'm going to have these children, and we're going to figure this stuff out. It's going to be hard. But when I can look back and see mama and daddy and grandparents and family and community, and I'm resolved to the idea that even in my church, or my place, what I call my godliness, that there are defined answers for me. When that is a trusted entity, then you won't look for pop of the balloon, because you'll have everything you need right there. You can do pop the balloon right there in your own landscape. Look, it is 7:58. I want to take
that went fast. Well, one last thing I would say, I would invite anybody.
I'm going to let you have that last word. Let me go and take a break and bring in a commercial real quick, and then we're going to close it.
All right.
Everything we're made of contains light.
I thought we were. It's not good.
maybe, yeah.
Okay. Not actually.
That's okay. Well, we're about to go anyway. But one last thing I would say is that if you're going to have a relationship that lasts, first build a friendship, because friendship is what lasts. And that is a foundation that will keep you striving to rectify any conflicts. It's the mutual respect. And if you think about, your friends are your friends for life. So if you build it on the friendship, and if there's the chemistry of your sexual intimacy that keeps you bonded even in difficult times, and then there's the commitment of making sure your children stay connected to their greater family, then you'll work a little harder to keep that relationship together, even as you grow and change. The most important thing is that you recognize that you are having an impact on not just yourself, but all the people that are connected to you, your blood family and your community. So when you come together, you're partially holding that community together. It's more important. It's more than just you.
We're about to close out, and I just want to thank everyone for coming in today. Thank you, Dr. Naimah Latif, for giving your wisdom and your practical knowledge. You're such a dream, and a dream come true for so many of us. I love you, your smile. God bless your day, everyone. Thank you so much. Welcome to Coffee Break with Senabella. I'll be back here next Friday for you, and we're going to continue the conversation because I got a lot more to say about the sexuality of who we are and how that helps us to become.
That's the subject in itself.
We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, dhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiyabonga. Senegal, jaref. Kenya, asante. Israel, toda. Pakistan, shukriya. Afghanistan, tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.
All right.